Welcome to What a Creep, the show with Margot Donohue and Sonia Mansfield, talking about creeps from the past to the present.
This is your quick guide to the biggest creeps, jerks, assholes, and losers, the best of the worst.
From two nice ladies who want the world to be a little less creepy. Welcome back to What a Creep. This is Margot Donohue, and my cohort in creepitude, as always, is the amazing Sonia Mansfield. Hey, Sonia.
Hello, my friend.
Hello, my friend. We are the podcast that talks about creeps from the past to the present. Today's episode, it's going to be pretty much murder-free. It's going to be
pretty much.
Yeah. So it's one of, I think it'll be one of the nicer ones you can listen to in the car with your kids, maybe.
No.
Maybe not. Okay.
No, there's definite trigger warnings for foul language and sexual situations.
You've been warned, y'all. If you want to reach out to us on Facebook, we have a basic Facebook page. We don't really use it, but it is a good time for me to tell you we do use salty language in this program, so hide the kids.
Maybe. Yeah, this podcast is rated R.
Ooh, nice one, Sonia. Occasionally NC-17, depending on your idea of what that is. We're on Twitter at CreepPod, blah, because somebody at What a Creep for over 10 years never used it.
Creep.
Everything else in the social media verse, we are at What a Creep. You should be able to find that. That means Threads, Blue Sky, Instagram. Also, our email, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. We're always looking for ideas for creeps and for non-creeps, especially the non-creeps sometimes are tough for us to come up with because we want to do something special. I think you're going to like what we're going to have today. If this is your first listen, we always end the show with a non-creep. That just leaves you feeling a little bit better about the world. Sonia, do you want to tell them about the website?
Yes, you can go to whatacreeppodcast.com, and it's everything you ever wanted to know about our podcast. Everything. There are links to all of our past episodes, and in each of those posts are show notes because we source every single thing we do. We're not making this stuff up. So if you're looking for a deeper dive on any of our creeps, that's a great place to start. You should do that. There's also a link to our Substack, which is our monthly newsletter, and I still owe y'all one for December. I have not forgotten. It's just I was working on the creep this week, so it's happening. We also have a link to our merch shop where you can get t-shirts and tote bags and journals and face masks and all kinds of cool stuff with our logos and other fun designs in there. So please check it out. They make great gifts. It's not too late. And there's a link to our Patreon. You want to tell them about that, Margot?
Patreon. We have our first 8 seasons up on that Patreon wall. 8. We put out two bonus episodes every single month, and it's Sonia and I just shooting the shit, talking about creeps in the world and the news, that kind of thing. Want to thank everyone who joins us. I want to say thank you to Ellen who signed up. We really appreciate it. Thank you. We use it for just like the basic costs of putting this show together. Seriously, so it really,
all these
really helps
sources.
us. Yes, we pay for all of the sources.
Yes.
Not like we're paying off people. I mean, like journalism. We pay for subscriptions, that kind of thing. So
yeah, we're not TMZ over here. We're just, we want to pay reporters for doing their work.
So thank you, Ellen, for signing up. We really appreciate it. I also want to say thank you to Frank Raciopi. He wrote about us in a Medium post talking about the state of podcasting. Thank you so much. That was really sweet. And I want to thank We Got This Covered. They have a post there about all the Jared Vogel, the guy from Subway, that creep, all the people who do episodes on it, and they included us in there. And that made me feel really cool because there's some really cool podcasts that are in there. And I also want to give a shout out to Donuts 2000 for giving us a 5-star review in iTunes. Once again, that really helps us find our people. That's a way to support us. If you feel like doing that, that'd be great. On Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, just hit the like button or whatever they ask you to do. And if you'd like some stickers, we've got stickers and we will send them to you anywhere in the planet of Earth. I just sent one out to Finland, Sonia, the other day. Ooh. That's part of what that Patreon money goes for.
That's right.
But yes, all y'all, thank you so much for supporting us. And now we will dive directly into the show. Okay. Sonia.
Yes.
What the hell are we talking about today?
We are going to be talking about the Motion Picture Association film rating system. That is basically pretty guilty of double standards. I think that's a good way of saying it.
I think that's a new trigger warning.
Yeah, but trigger warnings, we're going the salty language always, but also a lot. There's some talk of sexual situations, if you will. This podcast would probably be rated R because I'll say fuck more than once. So sources for the episode, the book Breaking the Code by our friend
Nat Segaloff.
Yes, thank you. I was getting there.
I'm looking at his book right here at the corner of my eye. That's why.
Collider, Film Ratings, Forbes, Gizmo, IndieWire, the Motion Picture Association website, Roger Ebert, Slash Film, Vanity Fair, of course, our good friends at Wikipedia and Wired. So we're going to talk about the Motion Picture Association's film rating system, also known as the MPA, used to be known as the MPAA, but now
that's what I thought it was.
MPA. Yeah, now it's just MPA. Apparently, I learned something researching this. And why am I talking about this? Because I thought it would be fun, but also because I think a lot of us think the ratings don't matter,
right?
But they do. Like, if you don't have kids, you're like, fuck it, and like you just see whatever you want, and the ratings don't matter. If you have kids, maybe you pay attention to the ratings. Maybe you don't, whatever. But the truth is the ratings actually decide how big of an audience a movie can get. Like if a movie is rated PG-13, it can be seen by anyone. If it's an NC-17 movie, no one under 17 can go in. Even if you're with your parents, they're like, no, you can't come in. They can't run ads for that movie. A lot of theaters won't show that movie. So they are deciding who gets to see what, really. So keep in mind, as far as I know, back when you could rent a movie, you could rent whatever you wanted, whether it was rated R or not. If your parents were on your account, maybe they checked a little box that said, my kid can't check out rated R movies, but they would let you anyway.
Yeah.
Also, growing up, HBO Showtime, they showed rated R movies all day long. I saw this stuff all the time. We've talked about this on Dorking Out a lot. My mom didn't give a fuck about ratings. She took me to shit all the time that was inappropriate. I saw a double feature of Trading Places and Risky Business when I was like 12. Like, it doesn't matter.
I love that that's what your mother wanted to see that day.
Yeah, she loved to go to the movies. Like, and I would always go. So, again, this is really more about deciding what theaters will show and who can see them. It's not necessarily like you shouldn't let your kids see blah, blah, blah. It's not that kind of podcast. I don't care what you...
We don't finger wag that about stuff like that.
We don't do that. So, but I wanted to talk about this because the big money for movies is to play in a theater. So like, even if kids rent your rated R movie, you're going to make your money in the theater, not so much on home video. And this is a small group of people who are deciding what's appropriate for audiences. And we don't know a lot about them. Sometimes they get it right, but sometimes they get it wrong. And what movie gets a PG-13 while another one gets an R seems to be a matter of taste. And that's the double standard. There's a double standard for male nudity versus female nudity. There's, you can have a naked woman in your movie and still get a PG-13. But you have a naked man and you're instantly an R or an NC-17. There's a double standard when it comes to sex. Like if men and women are knocking boots, you probably still get a PG-13. If it's particularly graphic, an R. But if you have men and men or women and women or all of them together, a whole bunch of them, that's probably an NC-17 right there. And of course, because there's a double standard for queer sex versus straight sex. And it's frustrating for filmmakers. The MPAA never clearly spells out guidelines, leaving it up to them to guess at what. And a lot of these filmmakers are required to deliver rated R movies. Mm-hmm. So they're like
they make more money
to make more money, or they're required for even less than that, PG-13, but they don't know what the guidelines are because they're not specific. It's a, I know it when I see it kind of situation. And they submit it, and then they have to make cuts, and That's frustrating. Director Kirby Dick made a whole movie about it called This Film Is Not Yet Rated, which, funny enough, is not available for streaming or even to like buy on DVD.
Really?
Yeah, so what the fuck? Another conspiracy. But I think it's worth talking about because the truth is the rating system is broken. When something like Stand By Me and Saw have the same rating,
that's
something
a problem.
is wrong. Like, context matters. There's no reason a kid under 17 shouldn't be seeing Stand By Me. Like, that's ridiculous. So we need a better system. And until it's fixed, till we get something new, I think this falls into the creepy category. So we're going to talk about it. And we're going to start like we always do at the beginning. So first there was light. And then in the early 1900s, we get our first moving pictures.
Motion pictures.
The motion pictures. Those kids are going to be stars. And almost immediately, there's a concern about what's in these moving pictures. So before there's a ratings board for movies, there were like censorship boards, and they were popping up at like state and local levels. And the standards were all over the map. So like what was, true for California would not be true for Nebraska. And some of these censorship boards were actually in like state education departments too. So like I found a couple examples. In Pennsylvania, they had a censorship board that you couldn't even have a movie that mentioned anything to do with pregnancy.
Oh my God.
Like movies, this is a quote, "The movies are patronized by thousands of children who believe that babies are brought by the stork, and it would be criminal to undeceive them."
What could possibly go wrong?
Exactly. New York had a board that edited a film to cut out a scene of a chimpanzee getting its diaper changed because that references that there might be poop, and we're just pretending that poop doesn't exist. Chicago's board was run by the police. They actually banned an educational film that was demonstrating dances like the turkey trot and the tango because they were worried it would lead young people to go to dance halls and there might be liquor at the dance hall.
Oh my God.
I love this stuff. So in 1922, movie studio heads were like selected this man named William Hayes from the Harding administration.
Boo.
Yeah, boo. To form the Motion Picture Producers and Distributors Association. And it was an effort to self-regulate and keep like government censorship. They wanted to keep the government at bay. There was talk that the government was going to step in. We got it. We're going to control ourselves here. They began enforcing a motion picture production code, which is also known as the Hays Code. And that was in 1930. And the Hays Code stated that filmmakers had moral obligations, quote unquote, compared to other types of entertainment. Here's a few things that were in the Hays Code because this shit's fun. Childbirth couldn't be seen as painful because it needed to focus on the joy of family life. There could be no kissing that was lustful or lasted more than 3 seconds.
A lot of bad kissing from that.
Romantic partners that were in bed together had to have at least 1 foot on the floor. Cannot make fun of religion. Absolutely not. No interracial couples. No depictions of quote unquote sexual perversion, which of course is queerness. Yes. No content could be offensive to other countries. So this shut down any production that was like making like anything that had anti-Nazi stuff.
Right. Because that's a huge market.
No sympathy for criminals. Like, so you didn't have those anti-hero movies back then. You couldn't even show a toilet.
That was from the Brady Bunch. Remember that?
Yes, there's no toilet. That huge house, all those people, no toilet. So
the maid works for free? Can you explain this?
Yeah, so
sorry for going into our Brady Bunch episode.
All kinds of pre-code movies, which by the way, if you have the Criterion channel, you can watch pre-code movies and they're pretty
racy,
pretty sexy, and you're like, whoa. And then you see like a total shift of movies, and some of them were very clever in how they worked around it. And then like Some Like It Hot. So Some Like It Hot is one of the first movies that started blowing it off. They were like, fuck the Hays Code. And they were doing their thing, right? They had sexual innuendo, gambling, gangsters, cross-dressing. Like, and I laughed because they dress and drag to join like a woman's band. Anyway, it got 6 Oscar nominations. It was like the top movie of 1959. In the 60s, we started to see things like Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf and Blow Up and movies coming in from other countries. And those are starting to make money. And they're also like, fuck the Hays Code. So again, like the studios are now starting to worry the government's going to step in. We need to revamp again. So they bring in Jack Valenti, a former aide of President Lyndon Johnson, and he becomes the head of the Motion Picture Association of America, MPAA, and he institutes the new rating system in 1968. And it's the idea that it's going to help parents decide what their kids can see. That was the goal.
Should we take Timmy to see Deliverance? I don't know.
By the way, I totally saw Deliverance at a way inappropriate age. Again,
same.
My parents did not care. I saw Shining too young, saw Jaws too young, all the things. So a little idea of what the ratings board looks like and what the process is like. The board's made up of like 8 to 13 people. There's a few who are designated as senior raters. It doesn't mean they're old. It just means like they have more seniority.
These are paid jobs, or?
The current board is made up of like 5 moms and 4 dads. They're all parents. California, New York, Illinois, Ohio, Maryland, Hawaii. People submit their movies. The raters watch the film. They vote on what they think the rating should be. They rate it how they think other parents would rate the movie. They're supposed to be thinking about what parents think are appropriate. But again, that's different for everybody. And then they like share with the filmmaker, here's what the rating is. And if they don't like the rating, they can like recut and resubmit. They could fight it. So since 1968, they've rated almost 30,000 films, 1.4%. So that's like 428. Sorry, I didn't want to make it sound like I just did math. I wrote that out.
I was going to say, it's like watching the show Numbers.
Yeah.
Charlie.
Oh my God. I forgot Numbers was the show that existed.
I loved that show.
1.4% have appealed. That's 428 movies. 165 of them were actually overturned. You don't have a good shot when you try to appeal, basically. So the original ratings in 1968 were G, which is general audiences, M, suggested for mature audiences, restricted, rated R, and then X, which is like no one under
Fun.
16. What?
The fun movies.
Yeah, the fun ones. And when X first came out, it wasn't a big deal. It just meant it was adult. So like Midnight Cowboy won Best Picture. It's rated X. Clockwork Orange, rated X. Is The Last Tango in Paris rated X?
It should be.
Maybe.
We talked about Marlon Brando before.
Mm-hmm. And there's been a few changes of the rating system since then. So we still have G, which is like, Cinderella, Toy Story, usually animated. Things like Ben-Hur was rated G back in the day.
If you could sit through it, go for it, kid.
Yeah, if that's your jam, sure. M was changed to PG, parental guidance adjusted, and that's your Home Alones, your Goonies, your Elf, but it's also your Poltergeists and your Jaws. And I think that that's fascinating because Home Alone hasn't traumatized an entire generation of people.
Home Alone inspired boys that were hoping for a home invasion. Because they thought they could figure it out. Yeah,
he's waiting. He's ready. In 84,
the wet bandits are going to get to him.
No, they are not. And then in Home Alone 2, they're the sticky bandits. Those movies are ridiculous. Calvin loves them so much. In 84, they added PG-13. That's because like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom came out, and Gremlins came out that year too. And they're not quite PG, but they're not quite R. So we get something new. Then we get rated R. No one under 17 admitted without their parents. And that one is still like, I'm like, And we're going to talk about these double standards. So, like, something like The Breakfast Club is rated R.
What?
Breakfast Club is rated R for language.
For God's sakes.
But the actual audience for that movie is under 17.
Probably because of the pot, right? Because they smoke weed.
That too. Yes.
Yeah.
And then more recently, there was a movie called 8th Grade, which is really good about like social media and like, I don't know, kind of the cool girls club, kind of like a more realistic version of Mean Girls in a way. It's really, really good. Also rated R. And I'm like, people like 8th grade and under should be able to see 8th grade. It's, again, because of some language. It's very ridiculous. These movies are not risky business. Like they're not hostile. Like they should be able to see these movies. And then in 1990, they changed X to NC-17. No one under 17 could go in, even if your parents like, my kid can totally see Henry and June. They're
right.
Like,
that's the first one.
Yeah.
Oh.
And they did this because X rating had been co-opted by the adult film industry, and it was like XXX, super porny, you know. And so people see the X, and they're like, "Oh, it's porn." And it turned out the MPAA never copyrighted X, so like they couldn't stop the porn industry from doing that. So they've actually copyrighted NC-17, but that's not as fun. Like you would never see an adult movie go, we're NC-17 teen, something
plus.
Well, yeah, so it's not a thing. And the NC-17, honestly, it's basically useless. Like with the rare exception, no studio releases an NC-17 movie because media outlets won't accept the ads, and some theaters can't or won't show those movies. So let's see. Let's get. I'm going through my notes. Sorry.
That's okay.
There's a few guidelines that people have started to figure out over the years. Like, so for example, any drug use, any brief nudity that's not sexual in nature. This is what the MPAA says. Any drug use, any brief nudity that's not sexual in nature, violence that isn't realistic, extreme, or persistent, and one usage of the word fuck, and you could get a PG-13 rating. So if you just show boobs, you could get PG-13.
And they showed a lot of boobs in the 80s.
Yeah, they did. But I think, again, here comes the double standard. By brief nudity, they mean female nudity. Because coincidentally, I just last night watched the movie Showing Up. And it's just a movie with Michelle Williams, and she's like a woman who's does clay sculptures. She works at an art school. It's nothing rated R about this movie at all. But there is a blink and you miss it shot of a nude male model in an art class, so you see dick for like half a second. Movie's rated R for no reason. No one's even walking around going, fucking fuck. Like, there's no reason.
Where's the toilet?
You see where's the toilet? There's like, actually, this almost came out wrong. I was going to say there's like this small amount of dick, but I don't want to comment on the man's dick. It's perfectly fine.
I'm sure it's perfect.
It's a perfect size, I'm sure.
It makes everyone happy that you give it to.
Yeah, but we recently did an episode of Dorking Out on Doc Hollywood, and that has full female frontal nudity, PG-13. So again, the double standard. And if you say fuck more than once, by the way, instant R, because that's important. I don't know why that's important, but apparently that's important. And I have a report from the MPAA. I linked it in the show notes. And they say in there, like, they consider sexual content to be more concerning than violence. And I think this is fascinating because, like, every time there's a shooting, which is every fucking day in this country, it starts this debate again about violence in the media, violence in movies and TV shows. And, like, that inspires real life violence and things like that. Well, then why aren't we talking about that? Why aren't we monitoring that? But they don't. Anything can just get an R. By the way, I don't think movie violence causes mass shootings.
There's no evidence of that.
It's not a thing. So I put together a list, a time of ratings boards. The ratings board got it wrong, either by not considering the context, applying the double standard for straight gay sex, or just counting the number of times someone says fuck. The earliest one I could find was Sweetback's Badass Song from 1971. It got an R rating. Got an R rating because there's a scene of like a 12-year-old who visits some sex workers. The movie's written, directed by Melvin Van Peebles, Mario Van Peebles' dad. And he chose not to cut the scene. And instead he was like, fuck you. And he released the film. And he had the tagline on it said, rated X by an all-white jury.
Wow. He was a badass.
Yeah, that's right there in the name, folks. Badass Song. He was like, he just said the content of the film was never judged. It was just this like one thing, and they slapped it with an X. Then there's Henry and June from 1990. I've seen this movie. Have you seen this movie?
I'm sure I did back in the day, but I don't remember it.
There's, first of all, anyone who went and thought they were going to see some hot shit, you didn't. The reason it's NC-17 is there are some pictures from a book that it contains, and this is a thing that exists apparently, octopus erotica. Like,
sorry.
Apparently this is a thing. I've heard of this before, by the way. In Japan in particular, there's this idea of like women and octopus, women and octopi, I guess. It's drawings, obviously. I assume women aren't really doing this, or maybe they are. But there's like a shot of a book of this, and there's a sex scene, 2 sex scenes, I believe, and it's with women. What? Women? NC-17. The movie bombed, by the way, because a lot of theaters wouldn't show it.
Right.
And they couldn't run ads. Then we get Basic Instinct in 1995.
Oh, yes.
Which I think is on our list. We'll get to Basic Instinct at some point because it'll be so fun to talk about. Of course, there's the famous scene with Sharon Stone, like crossing and uncrossing her legs, and we see a little vag there. But that we also have like a pretty graphic love scene between Michael Douglas and Sharon Stone. And the board had no problem with like, sorry, everybody, sexual situations. Sharon Stone's character going down on Michael Douglas is fine. Thumbs up. The minute he goes down on her, edits, please. Edits. We need edits if you want that R rating. So like the director had to cut like 35, 40 seconds out of the movie to get that R rating because we don't want to see men giving women pleasure. We only want to see women giving men pleasure.
Right.
In also 99, we got Boys Don't Cry, which is so fucking sad. I can't even watch that movie. I watched it once and I was like, such a good movie. I can never watch it again. There's a couple of those movies. Boys Don't Cry, Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah.
I can't watch
Schindler's List.
Again. Schindler's List. Oh, I unfortunately have seen that one more, but it makes me sob every time. Anyway, Boys Don't Cry, slapped with an NC-17 rating, not because there's, say, a very violent rape scene in that movie. There's a sex scene between Hilary Swank and Chloe Sevigny that they said, it goes on too long. It's between 2 women. So she had to trim it to get that R rating. Hilary Swank deservedly won an Oscar that year. She's very, very good in that movie. Same year, 99, Eyes Wide Shut comes out. I recently watched Eyes Wide Shut. I'm going to watch it again because I've decided it's a holiday movie. And I've watched the like unedited version. It's not that bad. Like, again, Stanley Kubrick, the director, he actually died 6 days after the final screening of that movie. And there's a scene with like an orgy, and they put like they were like, we have to get that R rating. So they put these like cutouts almost of people like in front of the orgy so you don't see everything. Roger Ebert famously called it the Austin Powers solution because it like blocking that stuff. It's, again, I've seen the edited and not edited version. It's not that big of a deal.
It's not that sexy either.
It's not sexy. It's not even like, I mean, it's not my favorite thing to see, but it's also like, it's not even shocking to me. So this is one of those things where like, not only did they do this like comical thing where they basically digitally put these like cutouts in front of it, he had died and it's like against his wishes basically to even do that. It feels wrong. So I put it in here. More of the double standard coming. Did you ever see But I'm a Cheerleader?
It's a great movie. It's
so good. So the director, Janie Babbitt, said that her film got an NC-17 because there was some implied sexual activity between two ladies. And then she had to cut out dialogue about like two women giving each other oral pleasure. Again, the double standard.
We can hear blowjobs all day, though.
Totally. By the way, around the same time, we get a movie like American Beauty with like a scene literally of Kevin Spacey jerking it in the shower, and that's rated R, and it goes on to win Best Picture. Mm-hmm. You know, but we can't have this. Or God help us, American Pie, I think, came out around the same time.
He fucked a pie.
Dude fucked a pie. Fucks a pie. It's rated R.
Rated R. That's funny.
Yeah. Yeah. So a dude like jerks off in a cup and someone drinks it. Rated R. That's fine. Whatever. Also 2000, American Psycho comes out.
Yes.
And it's got some gruesome murders in it. Like there's like someone gets killed with an axe. Another woman like gets killed with a chainsaw. Again, the ratings board's like, that's fine. But they really took issue with the three-way sex scene between Christian Bale and two sex workers. And they were really thrown off by the fact that Christian Bale's character, he's playing Patrick Bateman, right? Mm-hmm. That's his name, is looking at himself in the mirror during the three-way sex scene. And they really didn't like that.
Why?
Who knows?
Because he's a psycho. That's the whole point. Yeah.
The director, Mary Herron's like, it's to show you how disconnected he is from the world. It's to show that he's like so fucked up. And they were like, they had to cut like 18 seconds out of the sequence to get the R. Again, all the violence is fine. But that part, how dare you?
How dare you?
Roger Ebert was a big... Roger Ebert loved to write about how the ratings board was fucked up. It's like one of his favorite things to write about. And I think this was in 2000. Coyote Ugly came out around the same time as
Classic
Almost
film.
Famous. We should talk about Coyote Ugly because I think it would be super fun.
I think it'd be hilarious to revisit that one.
Yes. Yeah. Like, I have many thoughts and feelings about Coyote Ugly. Not in a good way. So he wrote a whole article about this because Coyote Ugly is PG-13. And it's about a bunch of women who like dance on bars to like sell more drinks, and they like lip sync to songs, and there's no nudity
based on
or anything.
A real bar in New York.
Yeah.
I've been there, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's it's stupid, but whatever. It's PG-13. Same year, Almost Famous comes out. It's rated R. Why is it rated R? Because there's he mentions, he says, this movie shows a bright teenage boy negotiating a minefield of a rock tour, forming a value system with support of his mother. It gets an R because of a brief, insignificant nudity, some language, and some drug use that's actually presented as a cautionary lesson. It's actually a movie that maybe you would want younger people to see. Whereas Coyote Ugly is offering nothing other than just
drinking's fun.
drinking's fun and let's dance on bars. Yeah. And Ebert would often refer to the MPAA board as like they just count beans. That's what he would say. He says the board can only count beans or nipples or 4-letter words. I loved reading Roger Ebert stuff.
He was a great writer.
He's such a great writer. Yes, he also wrote about the movie Passion of the Christ, which I've never seen.
No, thank
2004. Did you see that movie?
No.
Okay.
I had enough CCD as a kid. I don't need that shit.
No, thank you.
No, thanks.
So I went to Ebert for this one, too. And he said its running time is a little over 2 hours, and it is almost completely taken up by the graphic depiction of, like, violence against the man playing Jesus. What's his name? Jim Caviezel. Is that his name? The guy who thinks he is Jesus now.
Yeah,
basically.
He's an asshole.
It is like 100% like violent from beginning to end of what they do to him. And it was not slapped with an NC-17 rating. It got the R rating, but people were still like bringing their kids and like,
yes, because it's
like,
Jesus.
Because it's Jesus. Like
Jesus and pals.
Yeah, so Ebert wrote, he said, the MPAA's R rating is definitive proof that the organization either will never give the NC-17 rating for violence alone, or the MPAA was intimidated by the subject matter. If anyone other than Jesus was up on that cross, I'd have a feeling that NC-17 would have been automatic. In we got a few more. These are all about double standards. Hostel 2 and Once came out in the same year. 2007. Thank you. Once, very sweet story.
Yeah, one of the best movies that year. It was charming.
Yeah, it's so sweet. Two street musicians fall in love while performing together, and then you have Hostel 2, which I haven't seen, but I suspect it's pretty fucking gross. Once is rated R because of language, and Hostel is rated R, even though it has shit like decapitations and cannibalism and like all this stuff. Like,
how is Once not a PG-13 movie?
Right?
Are you kidding me? It's PG, really. They just play songs and they fall in love. They just play songs.
It's because people say fuck.
But so what? It's just a word.
Speaking of fuck, the King's Speech is also rated R. Because there's a scene where he's like, because it's boring. It's boring as fuck. Rated R. Like,
it's not my favorite.
He says fuck in a scene. And it's like, who cares? Who cares? But the director, Tom Hooper, came out and he said, what I take away from this decision is violence and torture is okay, but bad language isn't. I can't think of a single film I've ever seen where the swear words have haunted me forever.
There you go. Thank you.
Exactly. In 2012, Hunger Games comes out. I've never seen the Hunger Games movies, but I read the book. I know how very violent it is. Also, a documentary came out called Bully, and it's all about bullying. Imagine that. And there's some pretty harsh language in the movie Bullying. It's a documentary. And it's probably very important for people to see it. I actually put it on my watch list because I was like, I want to see this. As a mother of a 12-year-old, I feel like I probably should see this. It's rated R for language. This is a movie that like would actually benefit from younger people seeing it, and younger people can't see it because it's rated R. But then we have the Hunger Games, very violent from what I understand. Teenagers dying all over the place. It's basically the premise of the fucking movie.
Yeah.
Oh, no, wait. I'm sorry. Hunger Games is rated PG-13. Even easier for younger people to see it. My apologies. I forgot to say that part. And then we have a couple of things that happened this year. We got a movie called Passages that came out this year. It's on my list to see. Rated R. It got an NC-17 because there's 2 scenes in which men have sex with each other. I'm shocked. Clutching
my imaginary pearls.
Yes. I saw Oppenheimer. that has some pretty gratuitous sex scenes in it.
That was Christopher, Nolan.
Yeah.
Kind of be like, I could show tits. Don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was totally appropriate.
Super, super important to the film, but because it's between a man and a woman, it only gets an R. I saw the movie Beau is Afraid this year. There's shit in that movie that's fucked up. That movie's rated R. And just because two men have sex in this movie, it's rated NC-17. There's also another documentary out this year called Everybody. Two words, Everybody. And it's about intersex individuals. It got slapped with an R rating earlier this year. And there's nothing dirty in the movie. It's just because of the subject matter.
Oh, for
it's
God's
the idea
sakes.
that LGBTQA plus people exist, how they interact in the world, how they're navigating bigotry wherever they go. Instantly rated R just for subject matter. It's not like they're filming people doing it in this documentary, and this one bums me out because Roger Ebert, again, to go back to Ebert, he's just on my mind so much while I was researching this. He once said that movies are empathy machines. And I hate that a rating like that keeps an audience away who could learn something.
Yeah.
From a documentary like Everybody or Bullying. And I know the board claims that it's their job to reflect standards and that they don't set them, but they kind of do set them.
Yeah.
And they're saying that they evolve over the years, based on parents' opinions of sex and profanity and violence, but we're not seeing that if they are. And they say that they're protecting children from harmful content, but they're not. And parents aren't really using the rating system the way they intended. It's not working. So, I wanted to be and I have a better idea here. I fixed it. But honestly, I don't know if we need to throw out the rating system, but I think it could be clearer. And I think it could give people context. And I know that, when I'm researching movies to watch with my kid, I do a little Googling. I go to, Common Sense Media or something, and I see why is something rated R. And if it's for, cartoonish violence, my son loves The Mummy with Brendan Fraser. It's rated R.
It's rated R?
Yeah. And I was like, why is this rated R? Before I showed it to him, I was like, why is this rated R? And I didn't see any reason why he couldn't watch it. So I let him watch it. He loves it. He thinks it's super fun. It's very entertaining. He had a great time. But at the same time, I wouldn't show him Jaws. Jaws will fuck him up. And that's PG,
Wow.
So I don't think the movie rating system gives people the context they need to understand why the movies are rated the way they are. And they assume that, I don't know, if they just assume people will do their own research on these things before. They're not, because the truth is a lot of people don't have time for that. These ratings need to be clear. They need to give some context. And they need to be inclusive. Just because the sex in the movie is queer doesn't mean it's dirty or immoral. Right. And it's immediately slapped with an R or an NC-17. That's fucked up. Why is graphic violence an R, but sex is NC-17? Things like that. And if they want to keep using the NC-17, then something needs to be done about making those movies. There should be movies that adults can see.
Yeah, that are not for kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not every movie is for everybody.
Right.
But they can't go see these movies because theaters won't show them, or they don't know the movies are even out because they can't run ads. And that's a problem too. They should be able to show these movies. There has to be a better way. And maybe the NC-17 needs some rebranding. because people still think it's porny. I don't know, but they need to fix it. The rating system is not working.
Does it have an asterisk, like explain? Because I know when you watch a TV movie, it'll say
Yes.
this has smoking and cursing and whatever.
Yeah, you can go and if you read the very tiny print on a movie poster, it'll say like rated PG, some language, sexual situations or something like that. But like
sexual situations is kind of like such a nebulous term because
sexual situation could mean kissing.
It could mean hugging. I mean, seriously.
Yes. So like what they're doing, like the shit's not working. And that to me is like, I thought it was worth talking about.
No,
like, again, this
really
is it's a little bit different than our usual episode, but I thought it was worth talking about. Like what they're doing, this shit ain't it. Can we fix it? I don't have a solution. That's above my pay grade, but like they could be clearer and give some context and be inclusive. I think that's what's the real thing that's driving me nuts, though, is that it's not inclusive. It's that when it has to do with anything outside of like heteronormative behavior, it's instantly slapped with like
R. It's instantly
with an R rating, and that's not inclusive. It's shitty. It's othering people that makes me angry. So there we go. Those are our creeps.
I'm working on something right now, and I know a story about a movie called Saturday Night Fever where the producer, Robert Stigwood, had to negotiate the number of fucks they could put in that movie.
Yes.
And had to take them out. And he said, fine, I'll give you 2 fucks if you give me 400 theaters, more screens. And they said, Barry Diller said, sure. And he made most of the money, by the way. But that's like, it got down to like the number of fucks. He's like, well,
yes,
what's the situation that's happening? Oh, well, they're beating up, they're beating up, going after a woman or something like that. Like, wasn't that worse than them? But no.
This is what Ebert's talking about when he calls them bean counters. Like, you said fuck 4 times. That's an R. Because why? Because why? Like, again, the King's Speech is fucking boring. But like,
no kid's
why is
gonna
it?
See it?
Yeah,
the
kids don't want to.
So they think the king's gonna bone a queen. That's why they're gonna watch it.
Oh my god! When I worked at the movie theater, kids were sneaking into R-rated movies all the time. One time, these kids bought tickets for like Ace Ventura, When Nature Calls, or the other whatever, and they snuck into Nixon. Rated R. And then the mom came back and yelled at me, got in my face, mad, yelled at me because her kids snuck into Nixon. And I was like, first of all, the movie theater's not your babysitter. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, they bought a ticket for Ace Ventura and they went into Nixon. I was like, are you afraid they're going to learn something?
It's a rite of passage to sneak from one movie into the dirtier movie. That's what kids do.
Totally. It did it all the time.
It's a part of the experience of life.
Yes. They're just doing what normal kids do. That's what they do.
People think they can be so controlling over every single aspect of their children's lives. And it's like, you can't. It's just a movie.
Nixon. Also, it was Nixon.
That's something I would have done, though.
There's some hardcore sex in Nixon. We get to watch Nixon fucking bone down. Yeah. Woo!
He uses the F word a lot. I bet you that's what it was.
It totally is. There's probably some violence in there or something, but whatever.
Oh, by the way, fuck Henry Kissinger, who passed away.
Yeah, fuck that guy. His episode
is upcoming. I was waiting for him to die. I don't know why the fucker held on to 100, but we will be getting there in the new season. So
we can finally retire that meme of Death playing the like claw game, and he's like, "Is Henry Kissinger even in this thing?" So anyway, we're done. We're done with the MPAA ratings board.
Sonia, are you ready for our non-creep?
So ready.
Okay. Do you know what the #1 song this week is?
I don't.
It's Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree. It was originally released in 1960 when a 15-year-old Brenda Lee sang it. Talk about rating systems. I mean, the Billboard's top 10 has always, their top 100, whatever. It was always like sales of that. And usually it was based on sales. Like you had a physical thing you bought. You bought the 45 or you bought the album or the single or whatever you want. And that's how they figured out how things were popular. The music was popular. Every once in a while, you mentioned Stand By Me before. Like a song will technically come back. Like 20, 30 years later, a new audience will discover it and then buy it in droves. But not that often. So we have streaming now. And how do we figure out how popular music is when you have a streaming system? And they finally figured out somehow the number of streams something gets is actually the success of what the song really is. And that's why this year there are so many. Usually it's Mariah Carey, like for the last few years, when she released All I Want for Christmas, which for some reason sends some people into a fucking tiz. I don't know why. I love that song.
I love that song too.
I
like
love it
Christmas
too.
music.
I worked retail for years, y'all. I know why people hate it. I don't.
We accidentally upset our What a Creep Facebook group because we said we were maybe going to talk about the movie Last Christmas, which we're not. We're going to talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
And everyone freaked out because it reminds them of Wham's song Last Christmas, which, by the way, no joke, is my favorite Christmas song.
I love Christmas Time by Paul McCartney, which also sends people into a fucking tizzy. Mariah's song, that album did really well, but it wasn't number one at the time. But it's in the last 10 years now that we count streaming, the Mariah Carey. So this year, Holly Jolly Christmas is in the top 10, but the number one song is Brenda Lee. She hasn't had a hit in 40 years. And I just want to tell you about this. 4'9" dynamo.
Tiny.
Teeny, tiny, cute as a goddamn button with a fabulous voice.
Yes.
She was born 1946. Sorry, I'm mixing her up with Dolly Parton because I was just talking about Dolly Parton. She was born December 11th. Oh, happy birthday, hon. 1944. Her father passed away in 1953, so she was very young. And she was gifted with music. She had perfect pitch. She could also sing at the age of 2. She could hear a song once and then be able to whistle the tune and sing the lyrics perfectly.
That's bananas.
So when her father died, and she grew up in Atlanta, and she grew up in a charity ward of a hospital, her mother put her on radio shows because they paid sometimes $35, which is a lot of money back then. And I didn't know this. Hank Williams, one of my favorite songs is Jambalaya. And it's a jambalaya and a crawfish pie.
Yeah.
I thought Fats Domino wrote it. It was Hank Williams.
I didn't know that either.
Senior. He wrote that song. And in 1956, she recorded it. And it became, she recorded, in 56, she recorded Jambalaya and it went to number 1. She had a song called Little Miss Dynamite. She had a song called I'm Sorry, 1960.
I know that one.
That's a slow ballad one.
So sorry.
She's a teenager. She's a teenager. Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree came out originally in 1958. In the 70s, she got married in the 60s. And then she came back in the 70s. And the 70s was a time where a lot of country artists, Elvis was on the country charts all the time. Chris Christopherson, Willie Nelson.
Kenny Rogers.
Kenny Rogers, our bear forever.
Yes.
Anyway, comes back in the 70s. And then she kind of lays low. And then these Christmas songs started being rated. And these started going up in the streams. So she decided she was going to make a video. This would happen in 1958.
Yeah.
So Tanya Tucker and Trish Yearwood are in this video with her. And because of that, it got all these streams on TikTok and YouTube and everywhere. So now she has the number 1 song.
Nice.
She's, by all accounts, a treasure, just very kind. She's really lovely. She was in the Country Hall of Fame and the Country Music Hall of Fame and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Wow.
The Hit Parade Hall of Fame. She got the Lifetime Achievement Award at the Grammys. She's still with us.
Dope.
She's super dope, and just she's a lovely person. And I figured let's just, leave it at rocking around the Christmas tree. So that's our Not Creep this week, Brenda Lee.
What a great choice.
I wanted to just do something fun.
Yeah.
Oh, and sorry, breaking news. Ryan O'Neal passed away.
Aw.
Yeah. You don't know this. I was going to have him as one of our creeps, but I decided after reading Tatum O'Neal's book, I wouldn't do it. It was not.
Yeah.
It just didn't seem.
I said, like, it's
he was
really it's
problematic.
More like, yes.
Sorry to him and his family. They know. Sorry to Tatum and sorry to his sons. That sucks. I know it's like to lose your dad.
Yeah.
Have a complicated man at that. I know how that feels. So that's the show. If you like the sound of our voices, we were teasing about this before, but we also co-host a show called Dorking Out, where we dork out about movies. What was our latest episode, Sonia?
Oh, it was Sweet November, May, December.
Oh my God. Okay, so
how could we forget?
How could we forget? We talked about Sweet November, the 2001 version, and because we were both obsessed with May, December, we just decided to call it Sweet November, May, December. So it's kind of a twofer. We don't normally do that. What are we talking about next?
We are going to talk about Last Holiday. I almost said it wrong. It's not Last Christmas. It's Last Holiday. It stars Queen Latifah and LL Cool J. If you haven't seen it, it's streaming on Paramount Plus. This is going to be a really good conversation.
It's a 2006 film.
Yeah.
Alicia Witt's in there. Timothy Hutton's in there. We got
Gerard Depardieu.
That creep. Yeah, he's in there though, but not too much, so we could just ignore that part.
Yeah.
Queen Latifah's never looked more beautiful, more radiant. But we'll talk about it. Please follow us on all the things I mentioned at the top of the show. We love it when you use the Annie Potts GIF. We got one for suggestions for creeps and non-creeps. We also our email. whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. If you'd like some stickers, let us know. We'll drop them in the mail for you. Join our Patreon if you can. If you can't, just leave us a positive review someplace. That would be totally amazing. We'd really appreciate that. Sonia, where can they find you?
You can find me at thesoniashow.com and The Sonia Show on all the things. Your exes, not your ex-boyfriends or girlfriend. I mean, like your ex, your Twitter, your Facebook, your Instagram, your Reels, your TikTok, your where else? Blue Sky, your Threads, all the places. Where can people find you, Margot?
I'm at brooklynfitchick.com. On Twitter, I'm at that's also the same for Twitter and Instagram and Threads. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm at Brooklyn Margot, and that's also my cover, my handle, whatever for TikTok. And we have some fun there. So
yes.
I'll definitely put some Last Holiday, on there. See, I'm screwing it up now. Okay, everybody. In the meanwhile, be safe, be kind. Don't be a creep.
Be a creep. Thank you for listening to us talk about creeps. You can follow us at What a Creep Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
But don't follow us too closely.
You can email us your creepy stories at whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com.
But please keep your dick pics to yourself.